Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Morgan, and here we do all things spooky, whether that be telling stories, talking about scary books and movies, watching scary videos. It's a fun time if I do say so myself, and if that sounds cool, I would love to have you here. Now, with the scary stories thing being said, that is what we're doing today, and I wanted to take this little slot in time to remind you guys to send me your scary stories. So all that information will be below in the description, as well as podcast episode links and links to my other social medias. So please check all of that out, and without further ado, let's get into these stories. For some context for some of these stories, I need to note the following. Number 1. I grew up in the foothills of the Ozarks in Arkansas and Oklahoma, but all of these happened in Oklahoma. Growing up, I would have the occasional room that feels creepy, deja vu, and things like that, but nothing that fully shook me. I grew up in a Christian household and still maintain much of my childhood beliefs, so I'm sure that worldview plays a part in how I view my experiences. Nonetheless, I do believe in the supernatural 100%, and I believe that good and evil spirits manifest in some ways. I mean, folklore has to come from somewhere. Number 3. There's a small family cemetery with 3 graves on our property. Some are older folks, but one is for a 2-year-old who accidentally drowned at the creek down a hill in the early 80s. We know the lady who was a teen and was babysitting the little girl. It was 100% an accident, and I know it bothers her. There was also a building that burned down, and the cement pad remains to this day. There was a rumor that it was a devil-worshipping church, but I think it was actually just a more charismatic and misunderstood congregation, if anything. There have often been bodies found in different ways in the past, and the 50-acre property is surrounded by woods and creeks. It was completely vacant for over 20 years until my parents bought it. My husband and I purchased it from them when we got married, so I've lived here for almost 20 years. Number 4. One story is my husband's, and it's worth noting that he is Native American and grew up in a pretty traditional Native American household with his grandparents. English was not even his first language. His family was also Christian, but they did maintain some traditional practices, and he is close with one of the elders who's a spiritual leader in the tribe and a medicine man. He said there are good and bad practitioners, and he's had experiences with both. We've had some traditional things for protection in our home, and he's shared some more personal bad things that have happened to him as well. I don't want to share too much out of respect to him and the tribe, but that should be enough context for the story. So story number 1. My parents and I moved to Oklahoma when I was 13. We built a house, and while building, we lived in a single wide from the 80s. It was just my parents and me. Well, one night I was in bed at around 15 years old, and I heard a creak/pop sound. It sounded a lot like my mother's ankles when she walks sometimes, but the older trailer also had its noises. I had gotten used to it. And one of them was that noise. My parents' room was at the opposite end, so I glanced up thinking that maybe Mom was just checking on me or something. When I did, however, I saw a massive black figure that filled the doorway. I could not see a face, but I could tell that it was a male presence. I was frozen, and all I could do was hide my face and pray. I never felt it touch me, but I could sense it was there for a while. I have no way of knowing for sure with my face covered, but I do think it came near me. Eventually it subsided, and I never had that experience again, but I remember it to this day at 32. Story number 2. This one's very mild, but there is a place in my backyard that has felt off ever since I've lived here. It may be worth noting that while I do believe in some creepy things, it generally doesn't bother me to be outside in the dark. Anyways, this spot is near the propane tank where the corner of the fence meets the woods. We have woods all around us, but the one corner is what creeped me out. Strangest of all, it's lit by the floodlight, so you'd think it'd feel safer. Nothing notable ever happened other than feeling like I need to avoid it at night, but it felt that way until about 3 years ago. I have no idea what changed, but the creepy feeling in that area is now gone. It's actually where I toss leftovers over the fence for our cats now. I'd love to hear your thoughts, as it baffles me on why it felt so bad for years, but then it stopped. So, coming from someone with different practices and religious views than you, did you start putting those leftovers there before the feeling went away? Because if so, whatever's there could have taken that as an offering and just decided to coexist with you and to back off. It's worth thinking about. All right, story number 3. This one is my husband's story. It's not related to the property where we live, but he grew up in a similarly wooded and very culturally Native American area around 15 minutes away. Knowing the context of the good and bad medicine I shared with you earlier, he said he's experienced lots of creepy things, but one of the most vivid was when he was a little boy. His grandma would tuck him into bed very snugly when he was little, to the point that he struggled to get loose. Anyway, either the blind was up or there wasn't a curtain, but he said he looked out the window and there was a goat-like head with red eyes looking into the window at him. He's a pretty practical guy, and even as a child, he would have known if it was randomly a real goat. It was not a goat. He said he could tell the presence was evil, but he couldn't do anything because he was tucked in so well. He closed his eyes and it eventually went away. He's also told me the story about the people using whippoorwills to watch you. I don't know if that's the word. I don't know what that is. If you do away with the bird and within a week's Oh, is that a bird? If you do away with the bird, within a week, someone you know will pass away. It was that person using bad medicine to spy on you. Anyway, I know this is so long, and I'm really sorry about that. If I can respectfully share more about my husband's experiences, I will if you're interested. I also have just a few other minor creepy but unexplained vibes kind of stories myself. I love watching your videos and your cats, and I've seen that you haven't been feeling well and hope you're feeling better. I did have a cough attack at the beginning of this video, but I'm feeling well. That's really creepy. I would love to hear more about your husband's experiences. But yeah, I just wonder if you just like left an offering without meaning to, and that's why it kind of backed off. I'm really curious now. All right, next story. These are two stories that are rather dark, and one still scares me to this day. Trigger warning, mentions of unaliving. The first is from ages 4 to 10 while all the crazy house stuff was going on. My grandparents lived in a haunted house, and my mother, when she was little, had told her parents that she felt like there was a body in the backyard, but they told her it was her imagination. Fast forward to when I would visit, when I would always be asking my grandma to set a spot at the table for 2 girls who were my friends in the house. You would think they could be my imagination, except they told me who they were and how they died. I was 8 when I told my mom it was unfair that Jenny, how she told me it was spelled Jennie, and Ginger were not getting a spot at the table anymore. My mom asked who that was, and I told her that Jenny was a 16-year-old who had gotten pregnant and her dad didn't like it, so he took care of the problem. I also told her Ginger told me that she drowned in a bathtub when she was 10. No child should be able to know those types of details or to be that morbidly descriptive for imaginary friends. They never hurt me, and they were still around as I got older, but they stopped coming to talk to me because they knew my grandma would tell me to grow up should I bring it up. I was too old to still be imagining friends. I miss them, but my grandpa sold the house after my grandma's passing, so I'll never be able to see them again. Oh, no. The second story is way darker. So, trigger warning for mental health stuff. When I first started college, the dorm room I was in just felt disgusting and off, draining, and yet I felt myself unable to leave it. I would be able to go to class, but I almost immediately would head back to my room and sit in the dark doing nothing and feeling off. I was not homesick. It was a murky feeling that clung to me even when I was talking with friends if they came over. I finally put up a Japanese black lucky cat, the ones that are supposed to keep out evil and negative energy, in my room, and after months of this and thinking not so good thoughts, almost instantly the room got lighter and I felt better. The hall outside my room, however, started to feel like my room had. One night I went over to take a shower and then started the rest of my night routine. I heard a sound as I was brushing my teeth and looked up in the mirror to see a twisted, distorted, hunched over being standing in the door. It was glowering at me, and I hurried to spit out the toothpaste in my mouth so I could run. Then it slammed a fist next to my head by the mirror, and I bolted. I quickly ran to my room and almost broke the door entering it. I climbed into my bed and started playing hymns because I couldn't think of anything else to do. This thing started to mess with the doorknob as I watched the door, deliberately hitting it up and down with enough force to jiggle it, but not attempting to get in. About 30 minutes later, my roommate came back in huddling on my bed and had to help me out of panic. I asked my friend who lived down the hall later and if she had heard anything. She said she'd heard the doorknob jiggling, but that no one was out in the hall when she checked. I'm still scared of what I might have encountered to this day. Ew. Oh my god. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I should probably preface this by saying that I'm South African and this happened in the middle of nowhere in a northern Cape. So there's nothing but rocks, mountains, and little bushes everywhere you look. So a couple months ago, my parents wanted to go camping with a family friend for her birthday and wanted me to go with them because they clearly can't leave their teenage daughter alone on a farm. I had a bad feeling about it from the beginning. Usually if I get that feeling, I listen to it. But for some reason this time, I agreed to go without instead of staying with a friend. The road to this farm was terrible and very long, but we eventually found the place and said hi to everyone. I felt very uncomfortable, but everyone else seemed to be having a good time, so I tried to ignore it. I spent most of the time alone, sitting in the back of a truck, and I decided to sleep in the bed with the cover thing up instead of my tent. It was actually pretty comfortable. I ended up going to bed quite a lot earlier than everyone else because I just wasn't having a good time. So for a while, I was just lying with my back to the door thing of the bed open, looking at the stars and listening to music. Our campsite being pretty far away from where the people were, it was quiet. The hill that I could see was pitch black, but every now and then I could see something moving and thought I heard whispering. It creeped me out, so I closed up and went to sleep. But the cover has windows, so I couldn't cover up. I woke while it was still completely dark to the most terrifying metal scraping against metal sound. It was rhythmic and wouldn't stop for about half an hour. It was really loud and sounded like it was coming from all around the hills and mountains, as the farm is in the valley. I just lay there completely still until the sun came up, which was probably 3 more hours. I asked my parents about it when they woke up, and they said they didn't hear anything. I don't think I would ever go back there for all the money in the world, and I probably won't forgive myself for going. It was a beautiful place, but horrifying. You were not alone. Oh, God. This is Oh god, the way it sounded like it was coming from everywhere, the way these things can just like throw sounds scares me so bad. All right, next story. I thought this would be a good story for you to share because this needs to be known, and it's coming from someone who wasn't super in touch with their spiritual side until this happened. It's not about Appalachia, but it's about something spiritual that happened in December of 22. I was at a friend's house, and at 6 a.m. the door opened by itself. Everyone was asleep, their dad had just left for work, but it opened like 4 inches. No one was there. Then later that morning at around 10 or 11, we saw something by the field. We went outside and was walking in the fields towards the woods, and that's when we heard a man's voice say, "Girls." There was 3 girls, me, my friend, and another friend. It was like it was a warning because we were in the neighborhood, but no one was outside. We ran out of the field, and then later that day we were at a friend's house. And that night something was taking energy from me in the friend's room. It got so bad that I couldn't eat that night. Also, her LED moonlight started flashing red, and when red lights get plugged back in or turned back on, it flashes blue and green. And red. But this red was off. We took the batteries out. The friend's brother saw it flash red one last time. Then the next day we went to the creek and was walking to the woods when we smelled something dead. I pointed it out, but everyone just ignored it. 30 minutes later, we hear something and booked it out of the woods. We're walking up the driveway, and I get this really itchy feeling, and it was weird because I only get itchy when I'm too hot. I had a thick hoodie on and a t-shirt because it was winter, and my 2 friends lift up the back of the hoodie of the shirt, and there's 2 handprints, like I got pushed. Later that night, the side door that no one ever uses because it was off the ground swings open at 8 p.m. It was weird, and we shut it and locked it. At around 11 p.m. or 12 a.m., I was going to the living room to go to bed, and get to the living room, you have to walk through the kitchen and dining room. Before I even walked out there, I hear footsteps coming from the kitchen where the door's in the bathroom. Where the door to the bathroom in the dining room, which is across the entire house, basically, like across the door that opened. So I stayed in my friend's room. The next day, it was 5 p.m. at this point. My friend was punching the punching bag. I was looking around between the trees where the hammock is, and I see a person. It wasn't a person, though. It was like this thing that looked like a person. I told my friend, and we ignored it until we went inside. I left that night, and then Tuesday night, January 30th, I was at a different friend's house. She lives in the woods in a neighborhood. We're making a fire outside, and I've never had such a weird vibe at that house. The 30 minutes before we make this fire, we were at the old camper looking for a tent. I was barefoot, so I was standing on the wood, and the camper is under a little shed thing. There's 2 deer skulls hung up because her dad hunts. One of them fell on my head. It was weird, but I thought nothing of it. We were just making a fire, and I voiced to her that it felt weird, almost like I was being watched. I hated it because that was the first time I'd felt that since December of 22. She had spiritual experiences too, but she's a major Christian and just started saying things about God, and it upset me because she's my best friend, and I felt like I wasn't being heard. So I just didn't say anything else, and I kept looking around. It felt so weird, and I had a bad feeling, so I came home and immediately felt better as soon as I got to the car with my dad. This needs to get out, and people need to know to always trust their gut, because it's always safer to trust your gut and always voice your concerns. This stuff can happen anywhere. Another story is that my brother and his friends were walking down the highway on the way home from a walk, and they see a lady walking down the road. She's in a white dress and carrying a blanket and a flashlight and crying. My brothers, of course, decide to ask if she was okay, and she starts chasing them. They ran all the way home because they were so scared. That was in November of 23. Always voice your concerns and tell someone you trust if something like this happens. Also, this all happened in Arkansas. God dang. All right, on that note, that is all for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you next time.